Inverse functions. Whenever we have an inverse function, we want to see if it's a one-to-one function. And if it is a one-to-one function, then the elements A and B in the domain of, let me highlight this right here, of F, where A is not equal to B, implies that F of A, which is a function of A, is not equal to a function of B. So let's solve for example 1 to decide if it is one-to-one. So on this first one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine if F of A, the function of A, is equal to a function of B. All right. If it is, then it is one-to-one, okay? But for elements that are not, then it has the domain. It implies that they are not equal. So let's try it. What I'm going to do is replace this. I'm going to say F of A is equal to negative, instead of X, I'm going to put A plus 12. All right. And then what does that give me? It just gives me minus 4A plus 12. So let's do the same for B. And we'll just plug in B for X. And now let's set it equal. So let's take and set for F of A here. We got negative 4A plus 12. It's equal to the B one and negative 4B plus 12. So let's get all the constant numbers on one side and all the variables on the other. Well, those go to 0 and that goes to 0. All right, so now I got negative 4A equals negative 4B, and I can move them all on the same side, but it'll have A on and B on the same side. So what I notice here is that negative 4A is equal to negative 4B, right? So we're saying that if I was to solve for it and divide by the negative 4, we're going to have A equals B. Therefore, this one is one-to-one. However, let's look at this next one here that we got on the screen. It says that we have the square root of 25 minus X squared. So let's choose something for A and B. So if I did that, I could say let A be 3 and B be the opposite, negative 3. So if I plug those in, well, we know that 3 does not equal negative 3. So if this gives me that statement, then we know it's not true. So let's try it. F of A, which is going to be F of 3, we're going to plug in 3 squared, which gives me 25 minus 9. And I just picked 3 because what happens to the 25 plus 9, it gives me 16, which is the square root of 4. All right. Now let's plug in for B. We said it's going to be negative 3. Well, if I plug in the negative 3, I'm going to square that. It's just going to give me the same thing, 25 minus 9, which is 16, which is equal to 4. So now we're saying that F of 3 equals F of negative 3, which equals 4. So by definition, F is not a one-to-one function because look, these two opposite values. Now, whenever we talk about the inverse function, we know that we have order pair X comma Y, but whenever we talk about its inverse, it becomes Y comma X. So I'm going to write this in its inverse form. So I get 1 comma 3, 2 comma 0, 3 comma 2, 0 comma 4. And that's all the work on that one. Okay. So now let's solve for our next part of the functions. My mouse over there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to follow these directions. Whenever we have a function and we're looking for its inverse, we have a set of rules. We're going to find that we know that f of x, the function, is equal to y. So I can replace that in the first step. It says here, so step 1, I mean, these are a set of steps here for you to do. But step 1, let's do it. Let's, in the place of f of x, let's put y, because we know that that's the same thing. Sometimes it's already written y equals, so then we don't have to go to, we can go straight into step 1 on this list. All right. Next, we're going to exchange x and y. And then we're going to solve for y. And then we're going to get the coefficient of positive 1 on y. So now I got y is equal to, and you could write it as x minus 5 over 2, or we can write it as half x minus 5 halves. Okay, and then that would be my inverse function, which is written. So this here is actually this inverse. Okay, now let's solve our next problem we got. All right, so now we notice that it's already set equal to y. So all we got to do is exchange the x and y's. Solve for the y. I'm going to put y first. And if you notice that there's a square on y, so we're going to have to undo it, right, to get it by itself. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And, you know, so when you take square root, we get plus or minus on this side. So this is my answer, right? So there are 2 values for each choice of this. Let me write this down. So therefore, there are 2 values, or 2 y values, let me say this right, for each choice, because we got a plus or minus here, right, of x greater than 2. So the given function is not 1 to 1 and cannot have an inverse. Okay.